Welcome back to 3D animation. Today we are going to continue with beginning to animate our rig character, how to get that set up so that we don't mess anything up moving forward, and then also probably some continued skin weight mapping as we start to position our character in more extreme positions. We're going to notice parts of our mesh distorting, and we can always keep going back and forth and tweaking that skin weight map as we begin to animate and continue. So, a couple of things. First of all, one of the key things we want when we get to the point that we're going to animate, we're just going to animate our controllers, right? We are not going to animate anything else. We don't want to ever like animate things in the rig and confuse people when we're doing an IK chained controller-based system like this. There are ways, and I'll get to them in the future, about how you can do kind of a mixed animation of FK and IK, but for right now, I have grouped my whole rig. So my actual like rig bone structure and my IK handles, I put into a group. I just selected both of them and did Command G, and I put it in rig group, do not touch, right? And I actually even put them all on their own layer. So all you have to do is grab that group. Actually, I'll go ahead and delete this layer. Let me see how I can get rid of that. Delete layer. There we go. So I'll go ahead and grab this guy, this whole group, right? And if you hit this button down in this is in the channel box menu, layer editor, down here in the bottom right, I can create a new layer, and I can just name this rig and save. And then I can make the whole rig invisible. That way we don't just accidentally choose a joint instead of one of our controllers while we're trying to animate it. Often rigging is just one job and then the animator is a different job, and so you'd want to like hide this stuff. Not hide it, but just make it not so easy to select as you're moving forward. We don't want somebody to accidentally grab a joint and put a keyframe on that instead of grabbing the controller that they're supposed to grab. So hopefully that helps a little bit as we're moving forward. So like I said, I'm going to put it over there, and then I can just turn off its visibility. Instead of having to hide things in my outliner, I can just use my layers over here and turn that, okay? So hopefully that helps a little bit. And then like I said, putting it in the group in the outliner, again, so you don't just like accidentally select part of the rig or part of your IK handles. All my IK handles are in here. Everything's nice and organized. If I need to get in there, I can, but right now I don't want to. I really just want to stay on the controllers as I'm animating. That's the whole reason we made these nifty controllers, is so that we could just spend time animating those instead of having to animate the whole thing and losing track, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and just like unfold my master controller. I've got my spine and then my shoulders inside there, so unfold that, and then I've got my left, my right, my head, my right leg, and my left leg, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind too is as we're animating, we're really only animating rotation and scale on all these controllers. You're never, rotation and translate. You're never animating scale. And we don't want to do that. Like if I had my right leg controller and I tried to actually put that to 0, you'll see my controller will actually disappear. Like if I take those down to 0, I actually had a problem where I couldn't find my controllers, and it was because those got scaled accidentally. So I'm going to undo that just so we can always see our controllers. We don't want the controllers to get scaled in any way. So if you want to just kind of really make it so that you don't accidentally do that, you can go in here and you can choose your controllers, each controller, and you can kind of select the scale and visibility. Like you always want those to be on, and you can right click and say lock and hide selected. So you never even see those in the animator, right? I'm going to see if I can actually do it to the whole group. Let's see if I can grab the rest of them there and do scale. I'm just dragging and clicking to get scale and visibility. Right click, lock and hide selected. Let's see if that got that for all of them. It did, yay. So now I can really only animate position and rotation on my controllers, which is great. Because if you tried to scale them, it's just going to mess things up. Most of the time it won't even work, but sometimes if you try to get like a group with a parent relationship, it'll like change the position of the controllers and stretch them in really weird ways. So you just don't want to animate translate. Scale. You only want to translate animate translate, which is position and rotation on our controllers, okay? So hopefully that helps a little bit, and we can hide those away. All right. So now we can really start to have some fun with animation. You know, we can either stay here in our main timeline and then eventually move over to the animation space. Right now, I'll just stay in classic mode for a moment. And I can start to actually have some fun, and I can grab my different controllers and do things with them, right? So, you know, I can move these guys in and out however I want. And, you know, if I wanted to have like a simple, you know, almost like he's waving, right? So what I could do is move my timeline to the beginning here, and maybe I only want to see 50 frames for right now, right? I want to keep this kind of short. So I just changed my number here to 50, and I'm going to go ahead and put him in a starting position, would be like down here. And I'm going to go ahead and while I have my right arm controller, I'm just going to hit S and set a keyframe. And, I hit D. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Let's turn that off. So let's bring him back down. And we're going to hit S on the keyboard. You're going to see I now have keys set all the way through. You can see my translate Y went down to 0.377, right? And maybe I also want to go ahead and rotate that hand down a little bit since I have a rotation controller on that. And I'm going to hit S again, and that'll set that rotation on my keyframe as well. And then maybe now I bring this back up. So I'm going to move from one. I'm going to actually have this as a looping animation. So I'm going to do like up to frame 30, and I'm going to hit S again and set another keyframe. And then I'm going to go to the middle of that to frame key 15, and I'm going to bring this up, and then I'm going to rotate it so the hand kind of goes up as we do that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit S. And all of a sudden, now we can see I'm getting a nice little rotation. I am getting some weird bulging I need to check with my skin weight mapping. Like I don't like the way it's bulging out of the side of the head there. But if I go ahead and play this, there we go. A little raise of hand up and down. Now, if I do want to take care of that bulging, some of those bulging issues that are happening, I'm going to go ahead and save. And I'm going to look into this real quick. So I'm just going to select Pudgy. And I'm going to go, that's my name of my rather round little character here. And I'm going to go back up to skin weight maps. And so that is my, looks like the way my shoulder is controlling the mesh over here. So I'm going to come over here. That would be my right arm. And I'm going to scroll down through the list here. There's left arm, there's right arm top. Yeah, that is a really big zone that he's affecting when the right arm moves. So maybe this is where I need to go in and replace and bring that value down a little bit. And let me hold down B to make a slightly bigger brush. And looks like, let's bring my opacity and my value downward. And darken this out a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and take that down to 0. There we go. Let's darken this out a bit more. And actually bring my opacity up a hair more. There we go. Let's stop this from influencing so much of my character's body mesh. And here we go around here. There we go. Should just affect that zone a little bit better now. And let's see how that looks. Much better. When I'm about here, though, I can see it's bulging underneath a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead. This is where once you have something animated, it's kind of easy to just scroll your timeline back and forth to see if it's doing a better job. There we go. That makes more sense of kind of how it's controlling as my arm goes up and down, right? So I love the skin weight mapping even more once I get in there and I can actually see how it's affecting my animations, and it's not just like picking arbitrary poses that I might not end up using, right? I mean, you got to kind of start off just to kind of clean it up a little bit, but then once you actually get it in motion, I end up skin weight mapping a bunch. So there we go. That's actually looking pretty good with my arm waving up and down. Any point I can hit Q to get out of that and get back into my animation menu, right? All right, so let's get back down to my right arm control. I can see my keyframes are in here, the little red dashes. maybe when I get to this point, to my halfway point, maybe I do want my wrist to just be up a little bit more, kind of in line, make it a little bit more natural, and hit S. Let me get my channel box so I can see that. Yep, hit S so I see my control rotate Z went from like a little pink to back to red. There we go. So if I go ahead and play that, if I want, I can make it loop right at 30. There we go. And, you know, I could do something else with my right arm. I could start to, you know, this is where you can start to have a lot more fun doing all sorts of different animations, right? So I can have them, you know, doing that over and over if I wanted to. I can obviously also bring up my animation menu. And then I can actually see what I'm animating there on that right controller, right? Like I know I'm animating my Y translate and pretty much my Z rotation, right? So right now my Y translate, there it is. You know, I could play around with the curvature of this guy, of where I want it to kind of tilt it, give it a little more emphasis. Whoop, let me go back to this menu. There we go. Let's zoom out a little bit. And I could go ahead and play that. Let's go a little more up and then down, up and then down. So I'm seeing actually from this angle, I still have a little bit of weird bulge underneath there, so I probably go back in and keep skin weight mapping. But that's how easy it is, folks. This is how we can start to really animate. You know, if I want, I could make him also at the same time. Come back to 1 here, and I could also grab my head controller and hit S on that guy, and then come to the 16 frame there and have him, let's tilt that down a little. Give him a little bit of a head nod, and then S, and then back to 30, and I can just type in 0 and bring him back up and hit S again. Whoop, sorry, I was in the box. That's not going to work. 0 and hit return, and then S on that. And if I zoom out, oh boy, that's quite a bulge there it's doing on the rotation. But anyway, let's go back and take a look. There we go. We can see all of it now. Now I've got a tilting head and a hand going at the same time where he's nodding and waving at you, right? So this is where the controllers get really fun and easy. You can continue to animate. We're gonna, I just want you to start to play and get used to animating with your controllers. Just start off simple, and then we're gonna start moving into walking cycles and more advanced things. I have put a few advanced techniques into this particular tutorial. I know this is just a simple kind of introduction that we're doing right now. You know, we can keep adding compounded little motions and all sorts of different things to it. So I can give them a little twist as well, and set a keyframe there, and then come to the 16 mark again, or come to 30, set another keyframe, and then come to 15, and maybe I have them come back there and set a key. Now I can see all of my animations going on at the same time. There we go, getting a little body motion into it too. Very nice. So all of a sudden we're starting to see a way more complex animation happening. Actually kind of like, there's a little weird distortion there. I got to get in there and do some skin weight mapping on the kind of mid-belly. But I like the way his body's starting to move and how I can start to get these complex things going on. So maybe I needed to have his hand kind of like do a little like back and forth rotation a little more to give it more of a wave. But this is getting there. He's definitely trying to flag somebody down on the side of the road right now. So start to play with your character. Just start to get used to animating your controllers. The great thing about your controllers, you can always bring them back to 0 just by selecting and hitting 0 on something and then setting another keyframe. You can always come back in and tweak stuff and get it back to where you want. Yeah, I think we should stop there for right now. Make sure you go through that process of just kind of, turning off the rig and hiding it so that you don't accidentally move joints. Let's play with our controllers. Let's start to animate. And then next week we'll get into more walking cycles. But if you want a jump start on that, check out the additional resources that I listed. There's some great outside tutorials from professional animators. I am not a professional animator when it comes to character rigs. I'm definitely in the intermediate realm. But there's some really great resources there if you want to get started early. And I even put in a few for quadrupeds, which are quite complex. But like as I warned to those of you that are making quadrupeds. And then I put one in that's just a really simple one as well, kind of like a little snake-like one, similar to kind of what I'm teaching you here that you can begin to play with. So have a little bit of fun, and as always, reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for tuning in.